All right, welcome all. Welcome. We're going to give a minute for everybody to get in here. So glad you could be with us today to have some good conversations. If this is your first time hanging out with me for this, welcome to our pulpit. This is my home office. Got like old school things up there, and I got crafty during pandemic. These are those bed slats that you have under your bed, and we had a bunch of extra ones and galvanized pipe shelving. There you go. Here's your do-it-yourself home tip Pinterest extravaganza for the morning. I am super awake because I had a call at 6 in the morning here in California time, and I snuck in coffee. So you all are in trouble. It's like Sunday mornings. I'm operating on usually about 4 shots of espresso before I begin. So worship goes super fast. It's awesome. All right, we're going to wait for a couple more people to come in, and then we're just going to go ahead and get started. Thank you to Jeff Spencer, who should be at the top right hand of your screen, who is pastor near Palo Alto. Not that that matters, but is co-hosting and is going to be letting folks in. This is recording. Yeah, so let me welcome you to, we have a monthly meeting, a Zoom meeting of about, I don't know, it could be 20 to 40 people, where we just talk about what it means to be on Zoom in our gathering and faith communities, born out of our Facebook group that many of you are probably part of. So we're grateful that you are here with us today. As we have all learned, some of us walked into this space with more experience, others not as much. We all now have much more. We know more that we don't know. Some have gotten super nerdy and are way, like I watched the thread now in the Zoom group, and some of y'all are just way in the weeds. And that's that's not where I am. I'm much more like, what does it look like? How pretty is it? What can we make it? That's my world. And so we knew that eventually, and there's lots of places to have these conversations. And so what I'm offering to people is just to create these spaces to bring some practitioners in from different contexts. We'll do this again probably once a month. We'll do kind of a tech one, and I'm going to add on a music one in particular later on as well. And so this first one, I've invited 3 folks who kind of operate in different spaces, who would love for you to meet. So Emmy McCandless, Carter Anderson II, and Luke Hyder are going to talk a little bit. A couple of ground rules as we begin our time, and just so you know how this is going to work. I'm going to just basically interview them, have folks talk a little about what they're doing. Please use the chat. This is, I think, the greatest gift we offer to each other, is that everybody brings some expertise into the space. And we've, so far in all of our Zoom groups, they've all been super like empowering and inspiring and helpful. Nobody knows everything about everything in this space. And so we bring just what you can. This is being recorded, and I will also say the chat is also being saved. So I will post this recording on my YouTube channel and share it in the Facebook group and share the chat as well. So again, don't put your credit card number in the chat. That might not be a good idea. No credit card numbers or passwords. Other than that, whatever, go at it. So if you have resources to share from your own congregation, I know, for instance, MB has a sheet that she's going to share and put in the chat later. Please share that if you're open to others liberating your ideas. I think that's what has made our Zoom group so helpful for people, and why I enjoy getting to know what you all are doing. So without the other thing is we'll do, so how the structure for today will work is I will do a little bit of conversation with each person. Please interact in the chat, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A at the very end with all of us. But interact, you'll get your questions and answers, and we'll go a little bit over an hour. We'll see kind of how the flow is going. We reserved an hour and a half, but in online world, we can just kind of go as we can go. If you introduce yourself, would love if you could just give your name and your pronouns, and just give a context for where you are. Not a lot, but just like where you are, maybe what community you're leading, just to give us a little context. All right. So without further ado, I think that's what the word is. I'm going to invite, we're going to You know, I have Luke. Well, hello. So, Luke, welcome. Glad you are
Hi.
with us today. Let's see what's going on here. Let me see if I can get myself. Oh, look, there we go. All right. So there we go. Look at the Zoom expert not doing this. Okay. Welcome, Luke. If you go
Thanks.
ahead and introduce yourself, give us context, and tell us a little bit. Just why don't you start off with a little bit about your kind of journey in your particular space and discoveries and all that, and then we'll just kind of interact for a little bit. Welcome.
Sure. Glad to. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Luke Hyder. I live in Everett, Washington. That's north of Seattle. I'm here in my home. I don't say my home office because my wife and I bounce back and forth out of this space sharing it. She's a college English teacher, and I'm a solo pastor. So, and we have a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old. So we're constantly tag teaming childcare and 2 work from home lives these days. But I in the pastor of Cascade View Presbyterian Church, PCUSA congregation in the Northwest Coast Presbytery, north of Seattle here. And our church is about a 120 member small congregation in South Everett. And so sort of like we've been through everything. So Everett was, I think, technically the location of one of the first cases of COVID in the United States, and uh, and so our presbytery, our area, was one of the first to start to try to figure out these realities. Not that I figured it out, but we just got it started, and so I'm so grateful for all of the input that I've learned from so many people on this Facebook group. We went all virtual for the first time a year ago yesterday, and we're only virtual until mid-October, at which time our session made the decision for our congregation to start doing hybrid services. In the all virtual journey for us, we went from starting with literally my phone on one of these things on the pulpit in front of me, just going live to Facebook, to eventually primarily using Zoom with a small group of worship leaders on the Zoom call from their homes, then using that to broadcast to Facebook Live, which is how we've primarily done our online services for our community. And because that was our reality, when we moved back into our worship space for the first time for our hybrid online and in-person services, we did so under Washington state guidelines that allowed for 25% capacity in your worship spaces, as long as everyone could be 6 feet apart and masked and all that good stuff. And so we have room for about 50 seats. Our sanctuary is sort of a big hexagon, and we have movable seating. We don't have fixed pews. So we were able to just clear all of our chairs out and set up only as many chairs as we were allowed for the capacity in sort of groups of 2 and 3 spread around. And so we've had a capacity of 50, but since then, basically, we've been about 15 to 20 people in person since mid-October, and then another 30 or so of our folks online joining us via Facebook.
Great.
And so because we started virtual with the reality of using Zoom to broadcast live to Facebook, that was the easiest way for me to wrap my head around a quick and easy bring live streaming from our sanctuary setup. And so we still use Zoom, but again, primarily just sort of as our online broadcast tool. And so so I have in our sanctuary space now, I use a Zoom Q2N camera.
Awesome. Okay.
And that has it's just by itself, it's a digital video and audio recorder. But it's the reason we use this is because I can screw it onto this microphone thing. It sets in a microphone stand right in front of my pulpit, right in front of the pulpit of the church, which is centrally located. And then it has, with just a click of a button, it switches through a variety of sort of wide to narrow angles and can capture just wide enough of a view to get basically everything in the chancel that they would need to see. But the view is as if someone's getting to sit right in front of the pulpit.
Right.
And so I'm up close, head and shoulders like this when I'm talking and preaching, which I wanted to do because I've never liked the live stream. You feel like you're looking through a window in the back of the balcony of the sanctuary, sort of a view.
Where you can kind of crush the person with your fingers. They're so small. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to still bring some sort of sense like we're sitting in your living room with you. But then we set up, about 10 feet behind me, one direction, our liturgist, and about 10 feet behind me in the other direction, our choir director who leads us musically, and then off camera, but within earshot of the microphone is our pianist. And that's the other reason why we use this, is because it's got a good quality XY stereo microphone built in with the camera. And so I literally just plug this into my laptop with a USB cable, and my laptop's sitting on a music stand next to me in the pulpit. And then the laptop is plugged into a projector on the floor with a long HDMI cable. And that projector is projecting whatever people will see on the screen for Zoom or whatever is on my laptop onto the screen, so that whatever we share, like we screen share videos for a lot of our music. I use slides occasionally for showing an image or showing lyrics to a hymn or a song that we're singing. And so that way the screen share of that PowerPoint goes onto everybody at home watching, and everybody in the screen can see it and hear it.
Right. So they're seeing they're seeing the same thing for your in-person people and your remote folks.
They are, yeah. The people in person are seeing on the big screen the same exact thing everybody sees at home. And for the most part, most Sundays, that's literally just one user Zoom screen.
Right.
But the thing that we have liked about using that format for us is it has allowed us easy, seamless transition. Sorry, and I saw someone in the chat ask the camera, Zoom Q2N.
And somebody go ahead and put if you want to do some linking in there from all the wherever you buy your stuff, somebody put that in the chat too. That'd be great.
And if someone can find this, we just got this from Amazon, but and I'm on an iPad today, so it's not convenient for me to type, but if somebody else could put that on.
Yep.
So the other thing that I like about using Zoom is on occasion, probably once or twice a month, our liturgist is not in person behind me at a microphone, but is a liturgist joining us from home. And so sometimes it's like this, it's two screens next to each other. For me and those who are in the sanctuary live, and then a liturgist. And so someone participating from home can lead worship from home over Zoom and be seen and appreciated by the folks that are there in person.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
And then we literally just use the same Zoom meeting to go right into it if we have a congregational meeting. So when we had our annual meeting in January, again, we still had just maybe 15 people there in person, and then another 20 or 30 joined us on Zoom. And then in that case, we had a full Zoom window gallery view of all 20 of them up on the screen that everybody in person could see. And then if I wanted to, I could turn this camera around and point it out at the congregation and let them see everybody briefly, and then turn it back around.
Cool. Well, let me
that's
ask
kind of the broad brush. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple questions then. So what, and I'll ask all three of these folks, like what, when you started this out, so I'm gonna guess you just like this wasn't a huge like, oh no, I have no idea what to do. Like you probably did you kind of ease in? I don't want to say ease, but we're like, okay, let's just figure this out. I'm not scared of the technology. I'm not going to break the internet. Were you pretty comfortable kind of at least exploring what you could do? Was that part of your world before?
I was, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm a musician and have served as a pastor, but also in pre-seminary as a worship leader and
Okay.
in churches, and I've done various aspects of the tech side of things a lot, mostly either projection or audio. Um, this was my first time really dealing. This year has been my first time diving into figuring out Zoom and live streaming and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. But I'm well versed enough in some of those things to have not been too scared by it. Although I will say my general approach, I'm not I'm all for, especially in our context, figuring it out. What's the easiest first
Yeah.
step for us to take, or what's the so that's why we started with just my phone going Facebook Live. The first week
Right.
that we did it, and then some of the other things, it was just we don't have a lot of we don't have a big pool of expert volunteers in our congregation for some of these areas, but we have a few that have been helpful strategically. So we have somebody who's a freelance IT person, and they ran internet into the sanctuary, wired internet into the sanctuary for the first time for
Right.
us. So that it's a hardwired connection for our live streaming.
Great.
Um, but a lot of it, that's eventually I look forward to moving towards training volunteers to run the
Yeah.
Zoom and the live stream
What
and not be
you can't
running it
be
in the
the
pulpit.
pastor and the lead tech person and lead
It
janitor. I mean, it just doesn't.
yeah
I can't imagine. Well, let me ask you what.
it
So two questions then kind of come out of that. What at the very beginning, if you go back, what did you discover you didn't know? And then do you see this as expandable? Like what, like you started with your phone on a pulpit, which I think many people did. And then you kind of have moved into this stage. Do you see, is there a next thing? So what did you not know you didn't know? And then where is this headed?
let's see. In terms of what I don't know I didn't know. I mean, I feel like right now I try to look back and I'm like, I feel like everything I know now
Everything,
I didn't know.
everything.
um, but I mean, it's all been little steps of learning, things. So like, because I'm a musician, I cared a lot about how good would things sound, but I knew on the tech side of things that we didn't have the equipment and the wherewithal to get too in the weeds on making it like absolutely the best, like running from the sound system,
Yeah.
Sound. I mean, we could take it, it just would be a lot of extra work, but some of those kinds of things. So I think a next step for us, like we're probably going to move first from this setup being in the pulpit to the laptop moving down to the table that the projector is on, and having a volunteer run the
Mhm.
Zoom thing to Facebook, but with roughly the same setup, just longer cables. We probably eventually will move away from using. So currently it's this camera, and the audio is just everything that goes into this microphone, which means really to get pretty present sound from the sound system. We set up one of the monitors in our chancel for our house sound system, and turn one of those towards my back, towards the microphone,
Right. Okay.
so that it's getting a more direct sound, so that they can hear I'm close to it, but the liturgist is far away, so that's getting that through the sound system. But it's been a decent distance for picking up the piano and any other instrumental
Right.
or acoustic music behind us. But eventually we'll probably migrate to having a installed PTZ camera somewhere in the space.
Somebody
That
find that and share it. PTZs are the ones
yeah,
to go.
sorry.
You want to start. Well, yeah, you want it like if you want to I'm not encouraging anybody to just go big early. Like you
Yeah.
work up to a PTZ, but you may want to look into that so you can kind of see what's headed out. If somebody could throw that in the chat, that'd be awesome. Sorry, didn't mean
Right.
to
That's
interrupt, but go
okay.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So a pan tilt zoom camera that can be installed in, in the space somewhere and zoom in to get this thing so that I don't have this tech literally right in front of my face.
Yeah.
Right now it works because we're very spaced out and we've got a wide center aisle. And so the mic's in the middle and everybody I'm looking at is on either side. But at some point I want the zoomed in intimate look, but not with the camera that is
well, and
able to be seen by everybody.
I think there's something though right now about this reminder, and I've talked about these disruptors of hybrid worship, that one of them is, as I'm working with my folks, it's like, so there's going to be stuff in the sanctuary that's going to remind you that we are not alone. I actually think at this early stage, right, there's something like I talk about, I'm going to have a DJ stand, basically. I'm going to have my laptop. And so folks are going to know it's not just them anymore, right? And so I think there's something about having it just, I mean, it's a little annoying if it's right in front and you have to do the adjustments, but I actually think in some ways it's a reminder. It's like, oh, that's right. Like,
yeah,
it's just not just us. All right. So
yeah.
let me, so how have you seen, or how have you tried to instill a little bit of kind of hybrid world? Do you like interact with the people who are remote? Are they just watching? Like what does that look like in your context?
Yeah. So we've kind of, like we have not been, like I said, full everybody on Zoom interaction for our services, but we've been live on Facebook, and I haven't done like YouTube and trying to do multiple different streaming platforms just to keep it simple.
Yep.
I mean, just for me, like what it looks like for me, because I've got sort of 100 balls that I'm juggling to be doing this myself. We set from the early on, just some notes in our bulletin, that encourage those who are joining us online at home to, to interact fully, to interact in the comments on Facebook, to, do that. So I set up the live stream and get the live stream started about 10 minutes before the hour.
And let me ask you, what are you using? Are you streaming right from Zoom or using a third party?
Just straight from Zoom.
Okay.
So I open up the Zoom meeting and just click the live to Facebook, button in the Zoom window, which pops up a browser window with Facebook and takes you right to the live producer. And all I do is type in a title to give it, a title and a description for the day, and then go. And then but I start that with it muted and and screen sharing a welcome slide on PowerPoint that's going, and all that's just going from the laptop that's next to me. And then and I'll answer the question that I just pop up in the chat. So so the service is starting to stream about 10 minutes before our 10:30 worship time on Facebook, so that it's easy for people to find. That was one of the things I didn't know. We learned along the way that when I was starting to live stream right at 10:30, some people would not find it and then couldn't figure out how to refresh, their Facebook page. So I start that a little bit early, and then about 3 minutes before the worship time starts, I unmute, and our pianist starts playing her prelude.
Awesome. So I'm gonna cut you off right here now, just because I want to get.
Okay.
I had thought maybe we do a questions everybody at the end, but actually let's do 5 minutes of questions with you, because I think there's stuff. So I'm gonna remove our spots and everybody go back to gallery view if you would like, and let's go ahead and ask any questions you might have of Luke. Go ahead and use the raise hand down in your reactions there, and I will call on you, and just need to go ahead and introduce yourself, brief context, and then quick question. Alan.
My name's Alan Brame, he, him, pastor of a church about the same size as Luke's, near Lincoln, Nebraska. We have been on Zoom for a year. We're transitioning to hybrid. Well, we tried Sunday, it didn't quite work. My question is, does the Zoom Q2N have the ability to plug an audio feed directly into it?
It does. That's one of the reasons why we went with it, because so on the side it's got an in for a headphone and an in for an audio 1/8" jack. So if you get the right kind of cable, or a cable with an 1/8" adapter, you could run a cable from and out of your sound system into this. If you still want to use this as your camera and your streaming device going into your laptop or into your computer, you could get your audio from your sound system and put it in there. We just haven't taken that step yet.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a bunch of questions coming up. I'm not gonna be able to take all of you. I'm sorry. We're gonna just because I want to make sure we get to our other two folks, and keep asking questions inside, and Luke can answer those. But I have a question. Luke, can we thread a bunch of those together? Like if you want to do multiple cameras in a sanctuary, this is asking for a church that's thinking about how to do this. If we wanted to have 3 cameras and multiple sound inputs, do you know if that camera can be linked together?
I do not know.
Oh, okay.
It's got so it's got the besides those those 2 audio plugs, on the other side it's got a USB that goes into your computer, and then it's got an HDMI for plugging it in to like a TV or something for you to see.
So you could do 3 laptops almost and 3 streams of sound in and run them through your soundboard. Could be a way.
Yes,
too.
yeah, it could be used in the sense that you could have multiple multiple of these cameras could be multiple Zoom users. If you were all on Zoom, you could put them in different places and do it that way, have different camera views. But
cool. And I know somebody put from Sweetwater. Sweetwater is the place that I buy all my equipment from. I know somebody put a link in there from Sweetwater to that camera as well, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. We'll take one more question. I'm sorry. I think David, you had your hand up next. Go for it. Introduce yourself and quick ask question.
Dave Jones, First Presbyterian Church, San Anselmo. We're going to go hybrid in April after Easter. Saw some great websites. There was a pastor blog that had a recommendation. So we're thinking of getting a PTZ camera. It's going to be 80 feet from the front. So they were recommending a PTZ Optics 30X SD. I guess you have a choice between HDMI cables and SDI, which I don't know what SDI is. And they were saying don't go 4K, just go HD. So we're thinking that is a camera that would meet our needs, and wanted to know maybe in the chat use that or had experience with it.
Great. Those of you that are working with PTZs already, awesome. But go ahead and answer Dave's question in there. Thank you, Dave. And Dave is just down the street as well from me. We'll do one more because Robert, you have your hand up. Go for it.
Hey, Robbie Brzezinski, music director at Trinity Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina. And we are moving to a hybrid platform in the first week of May. And my question is, do you know if you can broadcast from Zoom to other platforms other than Facebook and YouTube using like an RTMP access? And also, what are you doing about feedback from the audio? If someone's speaking on Zoom and it's being amplified in the sanctuary, how are you muting that? Like, which device are you muting?
Great. So there's 2 questions in there. So folks, I think the first one, go ahead and answer in the chat around ways to stream to other places, because there's a bunch of different ways to do that. That'd be great. Luke, or do you want to go ahead and address how you're doing feedback and things? And maybe MB or Carter might also have some information on that later too. Go for it, Luke.
Yeah, I can address that question. I mean, for us, so the only issue really would be with our setup is just your usual issues of feedback in the space, which might sound like, if for those that know what causes that, is when you point speakers and microphones on the same system towards each other, is the short version. But basically the only reason why the setup I described works for us right now, where I've got one of our monitors pointing at this microphone, which is also pointing at me, which you'd think, well, I'm mic'd in the space. How does that not feedback? Is basically because that monitor's on one side of me and my lavalier is on the other side of my face. And the monitor's behind me and the lavalier mic's, pointing that way. So
your head is a sound blocker, basically.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we actually have a pulpit microphone, but that's not on, and we're not using that because it's got to stay down and out of the way for this camera. So I'm just on a lavalier in the sound system for everybody there in person. And then that one monitor is helping us pick up house sound system with this microphone. But feedback's not an issue in this circuit because the sound coming into it is all just going one way into the computer and out. There's no audio from the speakers coming out near those microphones. The audio out from the computer is just a cable coming out of the computer's mic plug, or not mic, headphone jack, into our sound system, and then those speakers are forward of me pointing out at everybody else. So
Awesome.
we it hasn't caused any of the echo feedback problems on Zoom, like if you end up having like two different devices on the same Zoom meeting where one of them, that with both speakers and microphones on, you get that echo thing. Because we just have the one Zoom user.
Great. Thank you. And well, I think part of it for everybody that we've all done, right? You got to practice, run it, make sure that you're not doing all that stuff. And I think what we are learning around Zoom a lot is that there's ways to make our sound not be awful. Like, I'm not ever going to say that it's perfect. And, you musicians in the room, I realize that it's never going to be pure, but at the same time, for those of us on the other side, we can have it. I've been in multiple services, and we've had guests at our service that they've figured out the sound. And so I think that that's a piece that is possible now, that before we were like, we can't do this. We still can't sing together, which is fine. I sing more actually now when I'm by myself in my room, in my office, than I do when I'm up front, because I really don't want people to hear me when I'm in person. So thank you, Luke, so much. I'm going to bring MB on. Please keep interacting with Luke in the chat, and Luke will head in there and be able to interact a little bit more with you. So I'm going to bring MB on. Hello, MB. Good to see you.
Hello.
And let me join you, maybe, if I can. There we go. What's going on here? I'm trying to join you here. Why? There we go. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, Emmy, if you could introduce yourself real quick, give us context of you're in a very interesting, unique space and kind of what you're doing.
MB McCandless. I'm the pastor of two small Presbyterian churches in Northwest Ohio. One church has internet and Wi-Fi, and the other church doesn't have anything. No phone, no sound system, no nothing. So it's interesting to pull these together. I'm she, her, hers, and also just really have been walking, trying to walk steadily and slowly forward. And that's been my goal from the beginning of this. What else?
That's good. Yeah, tell us about the congregations, maybe, and kind of where you are. Yeah.
All right. We started a year ago, having had nothing going on during the services, as far as no recording, no streaming, no nothing at all. And so about a week after our first week that we weren't in person, we took a snow day to just breathe and say, okay, what are we going to do? And then we haven't had a single snow day since, even on the days when there was lots of snow.
Right.
So it's
I've actually heard my friends who have snow days are like, oh, like, I think there's a little bit like you used to every once in a while just get this break. And now it's like, well, now there will never be a snow day again. Like, you're just, everybody hop online and people are like, oh, I know how to do that. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So basically we sort of took stock of what we had. And so we looked around the larger of the two buildings, and we we had just in the larger church had just replaced the sound system. I mean, we didn't even really know how to use it before we shut down last year. We were still all learning. And so that's the real blessing, is that now that we're starting to come back into things, we're learning how to connect everything through the sound system. But that's still a work in progress. But we figured out what we have. What does the church have? And what do I have? What do other people have in our churches? What do we need? What do we want? And what do we hope for? That's kind of been our process. So our building sizes, both buildings will seat about 100 people. I don't know that they've had 100 people in them for 50 years, maybe once in a while. We typically worship about, in the before days, we worshiped probably about 30-ish in the larger church, and 8 or 9 in the smaller church. And then today, right now, we're back in hybrid mode. We set up a policy in the summer that went with our state's what's happening in every county. And so when our county went to red, which was high spread, we went home. We went back totally online. But when we were at orange, we could be outside, or we were every other week outside, or we were windows all open and spread out, different things. And when we're yellow, which hopefully we will be again soon, we were inside, but with masks and all the stuff. So we're moving back down now. Everything's decreasing. So we went from Zoom only to in July, we went to orange, or back down, maybe to yellow. Anyway, whatever it was, we opened up a little bit in July. We stayed mostly opened up through about November, and then it started going up again. So then we went back home, and then about 3 weeks ago, we were able to come back into the sanctuary hybrid again. Right. The neat thing is, this time going to hybrid was easy. The first time doing that was really hard. And so I would say it took us probably 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months for it to feel sort of acceptable. It was really there are a lot of errors.
How would you describe hybrid for your context? Like, what does that mean for you all?
Hybrid for us is everything is on Zoom. We do not go live to YouTube or to Facebook. We don't record right now because we don't have the budget for all of the licenses we would need to do the big picture recording. Right. We're working on that, but that's a goal. And so we have CCLI and some really basic stuff, but we don't have what we would need for stuff to live out there forever, and like on YouTube or something. And so when we Zoom, every family and sometimes multiple people in one family are on screens. Sure. And then from the sanctuary, right now we have 2 screens from the sanctuary. One is wired in with an Ethernet line to the router. And then another is on Wi-Fi. And then at that church, at both churches, there's a good enough data that if you have unlimited data on your phone, you could also pull it up there, and it wouldn't interfere with the other. So there's that. What we are trying to do is basically everybody who's at home and everybody who's in the sanctuary is equal. Everybody's on equal kind of footing. We don't do anything that we can't invite both parties into, with the exception of singing. So your privilege of, if you stay home, is that you can sing.
You can sing, yeah.
If you're in person, you're encouraged not to sing. And everybody wears masks.
Yeah.
And
are people?
and we have windows open.
I'm curious. Are people paying attention to that, or are they still singing?
Well, they're mostly paying attention. I mean, even I will kind of hum
every once in a while. It's like,
it's hard. I mean, I'm a musician, so it's hard not to do that. But we also have windows open. And I basically said, when we come back this time, if you don't like having the windows open and the heat off, then stay home.
Yeah.
Because eventually it'll be summer and it'll be more comfortable. But right now, that's what we're doing. So anyway, we're on all of those different screens. The biggest challenge, because we weren't connected, we still aren't connected into the directly into the sound system. The biggest challenge was, how do we get the sound from people who are in their homes to the people in the church when we do things like share prayer requests or announcements, or even when we're having somebody be a liturgist from home.
Right.
And so we're basically, we use a Blue Snowball mic.
Okay.
And I highly recommend that you get a extra long cable.
Yep.
So that you're not, you can order though. I've got a 10-foot one now. So it will pick me up enough when it's set bigger.
Right.
Even though I'm mic'd in the church, it will pick me up. I can move it over a little bit to pick up the ambient sound from any instrumentalists because of the longer cable. So if there are people playing in the space, this Blue Snowball picks them up. But coming from out in Zoom land, not in the building, we have my Zoom person. He's more than a tech deacon. He's like a Zoom maestro. Anyway, he sits at
that's a good word.
A desk up in the front, and he now runs. It used to be I had HDMI from my computer to the TV, so this TV screen showed stuff out into the thing. But now he runs it from his, and he has all of the music where he can just pull it all up on his computer, goes straight to the TV screen and out into Zoom. The biggest interesting thing we're figuring out now is we didn't realize how much lag there was between in person and out in the world.
Oh, okay.
And now that we're more back and forth, we have to really pay attention to that.
So do you think that is because I think one of the pieces around internet speed and all those is that kind of what's going on there?
I think that's part of what's going on, and so we're working on getting that upgraded. But we're out in the country.
Can you talk a little bit, kind of heading that direction? What other equipment are you using? Because I think one of the interesting things for you were talking early on, kind of like Luke, and I didn't actually know this. Is you started with your phone. Like, so what are you doing? Is that what you're doing now? I mean, what's going on?
I have a laptop that my pulpit is in the larger churches, has the slanted thing, whatever, and then two little wings, kind of like most of them do. I have a stack of hymnals on my right-hand side to bring it up to the level.
I will tell you all that put your laptops on stacks of hymnals make me so nervous.
It's right next to, it's completely safe. It's never dropped. It's never moved. And the way I have the cables connected, they couldn't go anywhere because like this cable's going around this. I really couldn't knock it off. It's just it's there. Okay. I'm serious. I was nervous too, but we've done it for a year.
I've seen these. I've seen people like it looks like a big Jenga, and then their laptop is on top, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
Well, my laptop is kind of 1/3 on the pulpit and the other 2/3 on the stack of hymnals on the top part. So it brings it up to the place where I can look straight into it.
Sure.
I really do very little of anything on the keyboard at all during worship because the other guy, the maestro person, is doing that. And so all I have to be able to do is mute and unmute myself.
Right.
And that's been the big key, is figuring out how to work the liturgy. So the first week we did it, it was like, we were so confused. The second week, this is coming back because we have more stuff now. The second week, I had on there, turn off or mute television, unmute television, because we have the people on the screen the whole time, but we really only need it unmuted when we're playing music or when people are talking there. But if it's on, then my Blue Snowball will pick up that ambient sound from the TV. So you can't have both on at the same time or you get all that wah, wah, wah.
Right.
And then that's where it's really noticeable with the lag. So
So
I
how
do
many?
think when we
How many? Remind me again. Sorry, Jim, how many people are in your in person then? Because you're using just a big, large screen TV for your
yeah
screen, right? So about how
yeah
many people is that?
it's about well, I think the most we've had in person since we've been back after Christmas is 15 in the
Okay.
building.
Great.
Everybody else, which is up to another 20-ish
Right.
screens, not
Yeah.
necessarily 20-ish people.
Right,
So more
right.
people on Zoom.
Yeah.
And one week we had 5, and I was
Right.
like, seriously, why did you make me come here for this? But it was okay. I mean, I know
it is interesting, and I'd be interested to see other people respond to this in the chat as you move back into person. Like, we've had people tell us, yeah, we're not coming back, and surprising people like online's been great, and we're not going to come. And I think that folks, maybe not now, but before it was like everybody's going to come back, and I'm like, I don't think people are coming back. Like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't. Yeah.
It's going to be a both and this is another conversation for another day,
Yeah.
but I think we've got to figure out how to privilege the pieces that are fellowship and service oriented as far as the in-person.
Yeah.
And then figure out the more of everything else,
Mhm.
because people need to be together, but they don't necessarily need to be together to have meaningful worship.
Yeah.
And if that's not their thing, I'm glad they're just coming, period.
That's true.
We have also had all of our snowbirds continue to worship with us.
Yeah.
People who, well, that's what they call them.
Yep.
But these are people who they pull their trailer down to Florida, park it in the same place every year. They don't interact with people any differently in Florida than they did up here. They've been very isolated. They take their food with them. They're not being any less safe. I mean,
Right.
now some people I know are going and being less safe,
Sure.
but these people aren't, and they are coming, some of them on the phone and some of them with an internet connection. It's been great.
Yeah.
The other reason we kept doing Zoom is because, and we will keep doing Zoom, is because we have the ability to have people call in. Being able to phone in has been huge.
I've found we just found out we have a bunch of young people that phone in. That they're like, it's because I think there was this perception that it was going to be either it's internet or it's folks that couldn't figure out the fangled computer thing. But actually, what we found out was we have a couple of our young adults are like, I actually just enjoy just calling in. And what I think is happening is like they call in, they put their phone down while they're eating breakfast or doing coffee or doing stuff. And we've had this conversation about, well, have we become background music? I'm like, I actually don't care. Like, I'm like, whatever. Like, you can just be there.
Well, do you want to be background music or do you want to be nothing?
Nothing. Yeah.
And if the choice is background music, I'm okay with that. If the choice is nothing or that.
I just steered us towards cultural stuff around, but I wanted to stay in the tech music stuff. So is there any technological thing? Same question I asked Luke. Like, oh, back then I wish I would have known this. Like, what's the big learning for you over this time?
I think the big learning for me is that I don't know if he's online now, but Wade Halva was a huge help in I took pictures of what I had and said, here's what I have, here's what I'm doing, what can we do? And he gave me 3 options. I mean, I know we don't want to overwhelm him, but there are people out there who will help you, who can say, oh, I'm familiar with that kind of sound system. Let me help you figure this out.
Right. And
so the thing that helped us was going ahead and getting long enough Ethernet cables, a long enough HDMI cable to be able to effectively connect everything. And then multi-port connections. I use a Moken little multi-port connection for my, I have both a PC and a MacBook Air.
Right.
So I have multi-port connections. I don't use them at the same time, but for different purposes. And then external mics. I love my Blue Snowball. I think it's really important to have a good external mic. And then we're just starting to play with the USB external stereo sound adapter or a sound card so that that's what we'll use to connect to the sound system.
Great.
And you just look for a USB external stereo sound adapter or USB sound card, and you'll find a bazillion of them.
Yep.
And they're cheap. Those are super cheap.
Well, let me go to.
Um,
I'm going to go to some questions in a minute, but I also want
Sure.
on that. I want to do a pitch for if you have not watched the YouTube, the Zoom lab we had with Heather, Lynn, and Jason. Go ahead and, if folks, you need to go and watch that. If somebody could find that and post it in the link, that'd be great in the chat. But that was because I think what we've discovered is the sound part doesn't have to be as complicated as we thought it was going to be. Which I think is great. You were going to say something. Go for it.
If I use my phone for a separate camera, I just have to remember to not log in with any audio. That's the best way to avoid feedback from a phone if you don't need it for audio. So if I've got my laptop and a microphone, external mic set up, then having my phone, just don't log it in with sound at all. Then that way I can flip the screen and I can show the people out in the congregation, or I can show the people on Zoom at home, all the people in the congregation,
Right.
Use it as a mic like that, move it around, stuff like that. Don't need to do that as much anymore now that I've got my Zoom Maestro person up there, because his laptop is angled so that that camera actually picks up most of our space, which is interesting. So,
all right, I'm going to break us back into gallery and remove the spots here, and let's do 5 or 6 minutes. Go ahead back into gallery view, folks, and let's do some questions with MB. So if you have any questions, use your raise hand there, and I'll go ahead and call on you, and we can just introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll kind of go on. Any questions out there for MB? Is Gloria, go for it. Introduce yourself, context, and your question, and unmute.
Let me get that.
There you go. There you go. You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned, MB, that you had both a PC and a MacBook. I'm having difficulty. I can get sound from my MacBook Pro into my sound system. I cannot get sound from my sound system back into the Mac and to Zoom. Wade helped me out. He advised me to get a sound card, and I've been trying to use that. The MacBook Pro will identify that sound card in my sound settings, but when I do the sound test, I get nothing. And I had read somewhere that Mac had changed their way of dealing with putting in sound, and that it was a Mac problem. Do you have any idea? Or it's a 2020 MacBook Pro with the new M1.
I don't. I am not an expert on.
But my
any of
guess
that.
is that somebody in the chat is going to.
Yeah.
I see some faces going. So,
yeah. So I would be happy
Okay.
to read that as well.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we try a new thing, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work on this computer. Let me try it on this computer anyway.
And a shout out to Wade Hava, who couldn't be here with us this morning, but he's on the group and is super in the weeds about all this. So
Absolutely.
and again, none of us are making any money out of this, but feel free to chat with Wade over in the group, and he's super active there. So again, there's lots of people here. I think Henry just put something in. Henry, welcome. I don't know if we know each other, but thank you for all the expertise you're bringing into this space. So glad to have you here. So hopefully somebody in there they'll help you out, Gloria. So thanks for your question. All right, other questions for MB. Go ahead and use your raise hand there, and we can go on. All right.
While people are thinking, at my smaller church, I do everything from my phone in the smaller church, because there's no internet there, and there is good. I have good connection out there. I think it's 5G out there, so I'm able to do everything from that. We're not broadcasting in there. It might be 1 or 2 people calling in, and so they're more listening via Zoom. And then during the prayer requests, I can just unmute it because it doesn't interfere with anything, because there are no microphones. So in that case, I have it completely on, and we do that. So
right. Awesome. All right. Thank you, MB. Keep interacting with MB in the chat and asking questions.
Did Alan have a question?
Did I see somebody else? Oh, sorry.
I saw a hand.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh,
Just
go
a
for
quick, a quick question about you have smaller congregations, and I'm guessing maybe some older folks. What did you do pastorally to help them transition? I mean, because you know, some of the larger churches are kind of used to tech, but smaller churches aren't always. Did you say things? Did you was there any kind of
I said lots of things. Yes, I actually called, because they're smaller, I called everybody who didn't have an internet connection. And I talked to them on the phone. I said, did you ever use, do you ever do conference calls in your work when you were, when you were not, before you retired? You're like, oh yeah, we did that. I said, this is the same thing. This is just the same thing as that. And that was hugely helpful. Now, for people who hadn't done conference calls, it was just a matter of walking them through it. And for some people, it was being on the phone and on my computer and helping them walk through the steps on their computer. Once they got it, they got it. So, I mean, it was really a personal thing. I think you could have other people help with that as well. It wouldn't have to be all the pastor doing that, but it was really the personal connection and saying, this is the way we're going to have to be connected.
Right.
And,
Thank you. And others, share some other insights in how you've helped to bring your folks along. I mean, I think we at our church, we did tech deacons from day one to help be the contact people for our folks and I know we started before shelter in place was actually declared. So we had a week where people were actually in other people's homes to help them get set up. And so there's ways, and we found that our older folks, especially those in retirement communities, they now have people on staff in those communities who will help people get plugged in. So we have I think about 3 or 4 of our folks who have not attended worship in the last 4 or 5 years that have been there every Sunday now because they can.
yes,
So lots of
too.
different ways. Please share some things in the chat. I'm going to move us on though and go to Carter. And so thank you, MB, for hanging out with us. We'll see you in the chat. People interact with MB in the chat there. So I'm going to bring Carter Anderson II on. There you go. And then got to find me and add me to this. What? Why am I not able to add me to my spot? What's going on? Somebody, one of my co-hosts going, oh, why am I not? There we go. Thank you. All right, go for it. Good to see you, Carter. So please introduce yourself. Give us a little context about where you're serving and what you're doing. And then let's just, and then share what you got going.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, everybody, thanks for having me. My name's Carter Anderson II. I am the, what am I calling myself this week? Lead audiovisual and technical advisor for the music ministry for Peace Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. I've been serving in that capacity since somewhere around, I'd say, February or March of last year. My family moved to Louisville in 2019 for a position my wife was taking with the denomination's headquarters. For those who don't know who my wife is the Reverend Tanya Denise Anderson, former co-moderator of the 222nd General Assembly and currently serving as the coordinator for racial and intercultural justice.
I would like a little bit of credit that I did not introduce you and put any of that into your bio, because you are your own person. Knowing that my spouse was like, yes, I'm Bruce's wife.
No, unfortunately, and I am happy to relegate myself to this position. When I am with my wife, I am Denise's husband.
Oh yeah.
And I'm fine with that. She is a rock star, so I'm fine to support her and just be her husband.
That's right.
Let her do what she does. But when I'm alone, I'm my own person. I'm saying that, Bruce.
So tell us a little bit about what you all are doing at Peace.
Okay, so when I first got to Peace in November of 2019, I was intending on just joining as a choir member. I served as a praise and worship leader at my former church, Prince George's Community Presbyterian Church in Temple Hills, Maryland. Pastor is Reverend Dr. Edward P. Harding Jr. And when we got to Louisville, Denise had played a little bit of a trick on me and talked to the minister of music at Peace, Sheila O'Bannon, and got me to participate and lead a song in their Christmas production for December of 2019. So from there, I was off and running with the choir. And then the pandemic hit, and I sat back and I watched how they were planning on handling not having in-person service, because I was Bowie, Maryland, Adrian Knight. I just saw that out the corner of my eye. Anyway, let me keep going. So I as we hit around like late February, early March, we started to notice that attendance was dropping because people were worried about, you know, the pandemic. And I think somewhere around March 8th is
Yep.
when Pastor Wayne Anthony Steele said, okay, we're not doing in-person services anymore. We're keeping our congregation safe.
Yep.
So I was still helping out with, you know, managing audio, and I was trying to learn behind the audio engineer at the time, Eugene Sowell. So I was still coming on a weekly basis and learning behind him. And I look over and I'm seeing what they're doing for their live streaming. They have someone standing up, phone,
Oh yeah.
streaming to Facebook Live. And I said,
Yep.
you know, with my technical expertise, I want to see if I can dive in and help here, because I'll just briefly go over this. So in my professional career, currently I am a operations data analyst for the U.S. Postal Service. I've been with the Postal Service for about 20 years now. Most of that has been doing IT technical support. I've done some project management, some marketing, lots of different things. My heart and my passion is with technology and with helping people. So I say all that to say, once I saw what they were doing, I said, let me see if I can step in here and help. So first we started with a tripod. Let's get that win out of the way, right? So
What, you don't like the vibrating screen?
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we put the smartphone on a tripod, right? Then I said, you know what? I've got an extra camera. Let's do that. So the camera I'm actually using now, which is a Logitech C910 webcam, I brought that and I put it on the tripod, and I was using that to shoot their live stream. They actually had a few laptops a few Windows 10 based laptops that they were doing different things with. And I said, hey, what solution can we use? And I have to also preface this by saying, for all this talk about Zoom, as much as valuable as Zoom is, we do not use Zoom at all in our solution.
Right.
And I've had that conversation with you before, Bruce.
Yep.
We use OBS to stream directly.
Right. And somebody go ahead and because there's lots of different things to use, but OBS is a very popular free kind of one.
And
So somebody put that link in.
And that was the other thing about it, was I didn't like how the audio management was handled in Zoom. And I wanted to find something that was more was more comprehensive in allowing me to manage some nitnoid stuff as far as audio. So when I found about OBS and I found out about vMix, and I just happened to learn OBS first. So yes, thank you, Jeff. That is perfect link. So I put OBS on one of the laptops, connected my Logitech C910, and we were off to the races. Then I started noticing, you know, some lighting issues. So I donated some LED lights on tripods
to
the church. This is one of them. Then I just noticed little things here and there. And so we added, I upgraded the RAM on the laptop. Then I said, let's purchase a different camera, right? So I purchased this little 4K action cam. Unfortunately, the issue with these is they give you a walleye kind of view. So if you watch a lot of our YouTube videos for the past few months, you'll notice that a lot of our live streams have kind of a walleye effect. It's just what all action cams do. But this was very inexpensive for us. This was like a $40 investment for me.
Oh, wow.
So I said, I'll donate this to the church. So this is actually the church's. And then from there, I set up a YouTube channel. I set up a website for Peace. They have not put it out yet.
Right.
And I set up their outward-facing business page. So now our setup every week is I go in, I set up my equipment, my lights, my camera on the tripod, the laptop. There is a monitor in the room that I connect the laptop to via HDMI, and I set up my camera, line it up with the lectern on the chancel. We shoot our live stream. We go live right at 11. I live stream to Facebook through OBS, and I simultaneously record.
Right.
And when the session is over, I take the recording, which is recorded in MKV. I have not set up OBS to do any different recording formats. I just remux it to MP4, and it takes only a few seconds. I'm still crazy surprised that OBS can do that.
What's your
But-
sound situation then? Are you running through your soundboard into your laptop?
So that was I forgot to mention that. Thank you for making me mention that. So the system they have in the room, they have a Mackie 16-channel analog mixer, and Derwin and Eugene, bless his heart, brought in a couple 5-channel daughter boards to it that manage groups of microphones, because he was of the mindset that instead of having one mic for a bunch of people to crowd around, he wanted one microphone for every individual that was going to be standing up there.
Yep.
So there's about 16 microphones. And then there's I'm not even kidding about that. So
the
16
choir, like
microphones.
if you have like multiple people, they each get, I mean, but really that's ideal, right? I mean, that you're picking up
You can manage
individual
every single
sound.
individual,
Yeah.
So we've got 16 microphones, about 8 of them are wireless, 2 different wireless systems. And then we have microphones mic'd up on the drums, but we haven't, the drummer that we normally have has not been coming to service. Trying to get my daughter to come, but she won't come. We're also kind of keeping her safe. But and then the organ is mic'd because it's an old Hammond organ, so we have that mic'd with a corded Shure mic. And the interesting thing is, I found a $30 interface that goes from USB to 1/4 inch, as opposed to getting a sound card. I was this close to buying a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and then I said
that just got real nerdy fast.
Yeah, I know.
but,
I'm a huge nerd. So I was this close to purchasing a audio interface, and the one I wanted was the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and I got to a point where see, Deb knows about the 2i2. I see you. So, but then, because of the cost, I said, what can I find that's really simple, that doesn't involve another power connection? Because the way the place was wired, there was so much using power that I had nowhere to plug the Focusrite in. So I found this Roland interconnect cable that was single 1/4 inch to USB 2.0. And I plug it into an auxiliary aux out on the board that has its own gain.
Right.
Run that into the laptop. OBS sees that as a sound card. So I manage all this audio on the board. Unfortunately, the only unfortunate thing about that is I have not taken the time to set up an auxiliary mix to push out to the laptop.
So we got a request in the chat. Can you run that stream one more time? It's like what's the draw the diagram for our minds.
A technical diagram, sure. Yeah, I'm asked to do TADs all the time at Postal. So from the Mackie board, single 1/4 inch aux out, I plug my Roland interconnect cable, and that's literally what it's called. Roland interconnect cable. If you search for those 3 words on Amazon, that's where I got it. It was $30. And one end of it is USB. The other end of it is 1/4 inch. And I plug the 1/4 inch of that into the back of the board and the aux out. I plug the USB connection into the laptop. And when I open OBS, I'm able to select the Roland interconnect cable as a sound card.
Right.
And that brings the audio, every bit of audio from the board into OBS.
Yep. Which for folks who are looking at the sound, that is the magic plug-in for Zoom, for any of them. What we've found is if you can run most churches have a soundboard. Like now it could be in the back closet, which is unfortunate, but hopefully you have it where it's accessible and people can actually use it. But if you can get your sound into your board and just out through that one cable back into your computer, that solves a ton of our sound issues on anything. So that's the piece that you don't need. Like what we've discovered is you don't need to go out and buy tons of equipment. You just have to figure out what's the flow and make sure that it all plugs in directly. So that's really helpful, because I think a lot of folks think I've got to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. I'm actually it's not true. you can do a lot of good stuff around that. Let me ask you questions. I love the fact that it's like you sat back, you saw what was happening, you're like, oh no, this is not like I know what was going on in your head. This
Yeah.
one, there's half like I want to be helpful, and then there's half like, oh, no, this because I've sat in place, I'm like, this is not okay. I will not be able to sit here and watch this every Sunday if
Denise
this
and I were
continues.
both looking at our wallets like, what can we
Look
do?
exactly. It's like I am a former moderator. This cannot be. No, it's
let's see what we can donate because we love them. So that's exactly where.
But
we are.
So same question that I asked NB and Luke. Like, what as you kind of you had some expertise and some interest and passion, obviously already, but what's like your big learning over this past year that you're like, oh, if I would have known this at the beginning, I could have saved myself a little bit of headache. Like, are there things that you learned over this past year that you didn't know before?
I can't say there's anything that I wish I would have learned sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I wish that I were more inclined to understand audio management, because that is something that has escaped me for a long time, even as a singer. Like I was telling you before, I try to interact with whoever's running sound when I'm singing as much as possible so that I can understand what they're doing, what they have to deal with, and they can understand what I want when I'm on stage.
Right.
And as a singer, for anybody that's in this chat that's ever been a singer, the unwritten rule is don't anger the sound man.
Oh yeah, why would you do that?
Right. As an R&B singer, that was something that was dead set in the front of my mind. Don't anger him. So, and that's not to say that there aren't women running sound, because I've met some women that run sound that are awesome. My friend Elise Perry, right now back in Adelphi, Maryland, she's awesome. But anyway, so yeah, my only thing is I wish I was better at managing audio, and I mean mixing, because right now we have some mixing issues that I just do not know how to handle yet, and I'm still trying to learn. I've got it to a point where our audio sounds kind of nice, and I'm trying some things. Now I'm getting into VST plugins to make the audio sound a little bit better in OBS, but I wish I understood it better.
Right. Well, I think that's the part that I love. Folks like Wade, and we're meeting Henry here, and some other people, and you. I mean, I think this sharing of information that we've been forced into, but I think it's been really lovely how people are able to kind of help each other figure this out, and that now churches are starting to think about staffing. Like, okay, now this, because for some of our congregations, and this is the church I'm serving now, we're gonna have to think about, while we've been doing pretty well and we have great volunteers, and like, what's the capacity? Like, what are we really going to expect out of people to know that's fair? Like and we can put out a good, like, outward facing experience for people. I want to open this up for questions. I think there are folks that are going to have questions for you, so I'm going to drop our spots here, and let's open it up for questions. Again, you all remember, go ahead and use your raise hand. Go back to gallery view. Use your raise hand icon down in your reactions there. I'll go ahead and call on you and introduce yourself and give a little context, and then ask your question. So, questions for Carter? Anything going on? I saw a bunch in there. So, anybody want to? Deb, go for it.
So, hi, my name is Deb Rogers. I am at Suburban Temple Colami in Beechwood, Ohio. Thank you for changing it to Zoom Faith. I feel very welcome here, so thank you.
Great.
Carter, that was a great presentation, and thank you for slowing down on that. I am nervous about going back to explore that soundboard because I haven't played with it yet. How do I know what to look for? I mean, I get the other side of it. I use my Scarlett 2i2, I'm plugging it into my computer, I'm all good there. But we have a very old, very scary looking sound system in the back that nobody at the temple knows about. So I have to figure this out. How do I start?
Okay, Deb, first thing I would recommend is checking get the model number of the board, and search for pictures of it on YouTube. Search for a manual for it on, not YouTube. Search for manuals for it on Google, on the internet. Search for videos on people that use it on YouTube. But if you reach out to me privately, I would be more than happy to help you look for that. I mean, I even have an example here. Let me see if I can pick it up. A small mixer that I purchased for my daughter. And this is a USB mixer.
Everybody
Very,
needs
very
a tech
cheap.
nerdy
Q802.
parent.
Right?
Like
And,
what?
so
Oh my
I had
gosh!
to find the correct out port for this one too. So on this one has an FX send port. It's a single 1/4 inch, and what I do for this is I run this straight into. I would run this straight into with that cable I posted. That would go straight into my laptop, so that OBS would see it as a sound card, or Zoom would even see that as a sound card. And then on this board, I can actually do my main mix here. So I don't know if I can show that properly.
Yep.
It has a main mix, and then it has a separate mix for the FX send. So I can actually have a mix I'm listening to for the house, and a mix I'm sending out to Zoom, or a mix I'm sending out to OBS, because anybody that manages sound will tell you your mix in the house will not work on an internet send.
Right.
So you
Right.
have to manage 2 separate sends, and it's not that difficult to find the port. But like I said, I would be more than happy to help you find that if you reached out to me privately.
Thank you, Carter.
And I think also if you just took some pictures and posted them in the Facebook group, like
There you
people
go.
would, I'm just kind of tell you like, oh, it's that one. Like it's
Yeah,
that
we
one
can
right
find
there.
we can find the manual, we can find the port, and I'd be more than happy to tell you, okay, here's the port, here's the cable you need, plug it from here to here, and you should be fine from there.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb, for being here. All right, other questions for Carter? Go ahead and use your raise hand icon there if you have any questions for Carter around any of this stuff. All right, I'm not seeing any, which is cool. Any other questions out there? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and Deb, is your hand back up?
It is back
go
up.
for it.
I'm
That's
sorry.
right. Go ahead.
So one thing I had asked earlier, this is not specifically for Carter, but for the entire group. As we're looking at hybrid, looking for ways we use the chat a lot. So when we do a prayer for healing together, we like people to type into the chat the names of the people. When we have a time where they're supposed to enter things they're grateful for and stuff like that. So when we go hybrid, I'm curious to hear how people are trying to manage between those two.
I can jump on that real quick because we at First Pres in Palo Alto, we haven't decided exactly what we're going to do yet. We're still kind of surveying the congregation. I'm pretty confident in saying we were going to have some kind of online presence, whether that's 2 distinct services, whether it's a hybrid experience, or whether it's going to be some kind of streaming. But we will continue to interact with people who are chatting. And I think one of the things that I'm committed to is creating a sense that if you are remote, people in the physical location are going to know you're there, which means that I will, if we're, let's say at our base level, we're streaming, which is one option. We'll always say, hey, is there anybody out in Facebook or YouTube, wherever we may happen to stream? We don't stream now. Or on Zoom, have any prayers. And so inviting those people into the space, I think, is really important to do, as well as then making sure that folks in the space are able to get their voices out back out into the Zoom experience, so that we would try to create as much 2-way interaction as possible. I think if we're going to go to a hybrid experience where that I want to get us as close to having people experience it, no matter how you're there, whether you're in person or you're remote, you basically have the same experience. That's kind of my purest hybrid world, is that however you choose to show up on Sunday or whatever day you're gathering, you're going to have the same experience, essentially the same experience. So those come some of the things that I think we're doing. And as we begin to think about hybrid for our space, there are going to be some disruptors, I think, that to the physical kind of experience, that like this kind of DJ station that I may have in front of me, or bringing people in from outside on a consistent basis, or even me preaching from here on occasion even though people are gathered in person, right? So there are these reminders that you're still interacting with each other. I'm going to go to Judy. You have your hand up. Go for it. Oh, you're muted. There you go. You're good.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we have been entirely on Zoom from here, okay?
Yep.
Since a year ago. But we're looking at various things. And I know some of you have done Zoom from outdoors. I am just curious as to how you manage that and what is different about it.
Anybody outdoors Zooming? MB, go for it. Oh,
I've not done Zoom outdoors. I've done an OBS. I've done a worship service using OBS outdoors, and I can say that the issues with wind hitting the microphones has been an issue. But I can also say that it has lent itself to being creative with how to create something because I don't have to worry about lighting if it's a good sunny day, which helps me. But then there's also the issue of instruments, and there's the issue of microphone placement. So, like for example, I have a tablet with audio. With an audio interface, a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and I connect this USB MIDI keyboard to it, and there's my piano, there's my organ, as opposed to hauling something outside, because we don't have a keyboard that has its own sounds in it. And I do this whole same setup outside, like I said, and I've got to be shaded so I can see my screen, but there's just a few other things you have to think about as far as how you're going to manage sound, how you're going to handle the elements hitting your equipment, because that's going to be an issue too. So yeah, that's the only thing that's really a concern to me.
Great, thanks, Hyder. MB, you were going to say something. Go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree with getting the screen brightness. I have to turn it all the way up, and on my phone or on the computer laptop, because the first time I went outside, I was like, I cannot see this. I'm just going, anyway. So finally,
we are also getting old, MB. So I think there's,
I
there's
know.
all that.
I have
part
new
too.
glasses. They're so much better. But the wind is a big thing. So if it's a super windy day, it's just something you have to live with. But I have gotten a couple of the little screens that you can put over the microphone. That helps some, and they're just like really thin. Zoom has, the blue microphone, blue snowball. There's one you can get to put on it. There's one you can get to put in front of it. Putting it on it actually makes good sense for it. But
Yep.
Okay.
Great, thank you. We got time for maybe one or two more questions if you want to ask it to the group or to our panelists here. Who, thank you for spending time with us. Are there any other questions you want to lift up? We got time. Just so you know, I use a Rode Podcaster mic, which has the windscreen built into it. So if you want to, this is kind of a step up. Just because I do some podcasting and am online all the time. And I usually don't have it in my screen, but I did want to see folks. So I think doing things like getting a shock holder so that you're not hearing a lot of the bumping and that kind of thing. And my windscreen is built in, which is really kind of cool. So having a windscreen or a spit screen is good. It'll dampen your sound. Yeah, you can see Carter's there, and usually it's right there, so you can't actually see it. And I have it pointed down. So this is the one I use, and I just have a swing arm on my desk, as well as a swing arm light that I use here, so that I have all the things right around me. I'm not a tech person, but I like toys and gadgets. So so there you go. So there's a little bit of the equipment that I use, and I ran Zoom at the beginning off of a Chromebook at the beginning of this, and then realized that it just wasn't enough and had to go back to a Mac. And so I'm an Android person. If any of you have not followed all the kerfuffles I've created on online between Androids and iPhones, y'all, I guess, a little crazy out there. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, get into the Zoom group. That Zoom group is now like 2,800 people. It's wild. And there will be time we're going to need to figure out how to divide all that up. But I am so appreciative of those of you that are active there. There's been very little of having to moderate anything, which I am grateful for because none of us need one more thing to do. But keep offering inspiration and expertise and encouragement to each other. It's so awesome to see. Thank you all for hanging out here. I will try to get this posted on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow. I'm not going to promise today because that will not happen, but we'll get it up there tomorrow. I'll share that in the group. And then we'll plan another one of these. So if you are interested and you have a setup that would be helpful, please ping me, and we can try to get some more people to come in and share and continue to build on all of this. And again, I will save the chat, recording this, and we'll post all of this up as soon as I can. Again, thank you, Carter, MB, and Luke for sharing what you're doing. Yay! Good job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope you all have a good rest of the day. Have a great day, and peace be with you.
Awesome.